Shalom. We are in the 22nd chapter of the book of Genesis. So last week in the 21st chapter, we read about some things that I told you were disturbing to me. Actually, the last about 3 chapters, I told you things that were disturbing to me when I was a new believer, when I wrestled with things, and I said, why in heaven's name would Elohim bless such things? Why would he bless these situations and then later have them turn out for the benefit of his people? At the time, I didn't understand that he makes all things turn out for the benefit of his people. Okay? He has his perfect will where we do his absolute will, and we have his permissive will where he says, I hate what you have done, but I love you, and I will love you to the point of blessing you, finding some way, some good in your choices to bless you and to bless those around you. Chapter 22 is also very special to me because it was the first time that I myself saw a messianic typology. Okay? It was the first time that I opened the Torah and saw something that pointed to Yeshua as being HaMashiach. And there was no way that I could deny it. Not that I did, but there was no way that I could look at this and ever again say, he does not meet the typology. Okay? There's a thing called basically it's the mathematics of Mashiach. Because that's what I call it. And it says that for any one man, I believe the number was for any one man to meet 5, I think it was, messianic prophecies perfectly would be improbable. For any one man to meet at least 10 of the messianic prophecies, and there's hundreds of them, but for any one man to meet at least 10 of them would be so improbable that it would be considered impossible mathematically for any 2 men in the history of the world to have met 10 messianic prophecies perfectly. I want you to bear that in mind today as we read through Genesis chapter 22, and I begin to point out to you the typologies that jumped out at me when I was a young believer. I'd say I was probably in my first or second year after my salvation experience. I opened this up when Brother Jones was teaching on it, and it boggled my mind. I was reading ahead because I knew what he was teaching on the following week, and I read this for the week, and by the time I got to service, I had dug so deeply into this chapter that it forever changed my perspective on typology and prophecy. Sometime afterward, Elohim put Abraham to the test. Now, you know, there are places in Scripture that tell us that Elohim has no ill intention for us. That Yehovah has no intention for us to be harmed if we are his people. And because of that, a lot of times people read that and they say, so he doesn't let any bad thing happen to his people. If you're really his people, he won't let bad things happen to you. He will not put you to the test. That's not what it says. It says he has no ill intention. It says that he does not desire for bad things to happen to us. It never says he doesn't put us to the test. And often he puts us to the test by allowing us to live through the ramifications of our own choices. Often, if we are being faithful and making right choices, he will allow the enemy to do bad things to us. Not because he desires for us to have bad things happen to us, but because he desires for us to learn something about who we are and about who he is, and to build our faith and to have a deeper, more blessed walk with him as a result of those choices that we are making to obey him even in the hard times. He said to him, Abraham, and he answered, Here I am. You know when it says in Scripture several times that Abraham walked so closely with Elohim that he called him friend. And I've had people ask me before, why is that? Other people walk with him. Look at all these saved people. Look at all these people that fill up the churches. Why does he call Abraham friend? I believe this is why he calls him friend. Because here's the creator of the universe. And he says to this one man, calls him by name, Abraham, the name he gave him. And Abraham, after everything he's been through, says, Here I am. Here I am ready to serve. What do you want of me, my Creator? You know, the world's full of people who say that they belong to him. But when he calls, do they stand up and say, Here I am? Do we stand up and say, Here I am? Or are we more like Jonah and we go off and we have to spend some time in the belly of the great fish before we decide to serve him in the manner in which he has called us to serve him? But Abraham said, Here I am. And he, meaning Elohim, said, Take your son, your favored one. A lot of times the English translations will say your only son, and that always bothered me because by the time I got here in my first contextual study, I knew he had another son. Take your son, your favored one, Yitzhak, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the heights that I will point out to you. So early next morning, Abraham saddled his ass and took with him 2 of his servants and his son Yitzhak. I want you to think forward to the Brit Hadash. I want you to think forward to the Brit Hadash, to a time when the representative of Elohim went up onto a mountain after he had ridden triumphantly in on a donkey's colt. He goes up onto the Mount of Olives. He takes with him 2 servants. And he goes to commune with the creator of the universe. Can we see a typology happening here? He split the wood for the burnt offering, and he set out for the place of which Elohim had told him. On the 3rd day, that's significant, Abraham looked up and saw the place from afar. Then Abraham said to his servants, You stay here with the ass. The boy and I will go up there. We will worship and we will return to you. So we have a father taking his son, calling his son to go up onto a mountain and leaving 2 servants behind and saying, You wait here. I need my son to go up on the mountain with me. What happened in the Garden of Gethsemane, which happens to be on the Mount of Olives? The father called the son up to the height. The son left 10 of his most faithful behind, took 2 up, and told all of them, Wait here for me. I'm going to go talk to my father. He went up to worship. He went up to the Father, and you know what he said? He didn't say it in these words. He didn't say, "Here I am," to the creator of the universe. He says, "If there's any way that this cup can pass from before me, let it be." And then he said, "But not my will, but thine be done." Not what I want, but what you want. You know what that is? In essence, he's saying, "Here I am." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and put it on his son Yitzhak. What happened after the Garden of Gethsemane experience? The Father, the Creator, had chosen his son as a perfect sacrifice. And he had wood put across his back. Split wood had been made into a pole, into a stauros, a stake, an execution device, and was laid across his back, and he climbed that mountain. He himself took the fire stone and the knife, and the two walked off together. Then Yitzhak said to his father Abraham, "Father," and he answered, "Yes, my son." And he said, "Here are the fire stone and the wood, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering?" And Abraham said, "Elohim will see to the sheep for his burnt offering, my son." And the two of them walked on together. Think about that. This is a man of not only faith, but of hope. He has been told to sacrifice his beloved, chosen son. He has been told to give up his son, not knowing what would come of it. But with hope, he says and prophesies, Elohim will give the sheep for his burnt offering. They arrived at the place of which Elohim had told him. Abraham built an altar there. He laid out the wood. He bound his son Yitzhak. He laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Just as Mashiach was laid down on that stauros, and his hands and his feet bound before he was nailed to it. And Abraham picked up the knife to slay his son. Then an angel of Yehovah called to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham," and he answered, "Here I am." You know, this is a man who is about to willingly sacrifice the son for whom he prayed for close to 100 years. We don't know when he started praying, but we know how old he was when Yitzhak was born. This is a man who already gave up one beloved son. This is a man, this is all he has. This is his only child. Not just his only son, his only child. This is his inheritor. This is the one who will carry on the promise of the covenant. And without him, there is no covenant to be continued. And what does he say? "Here I am." You ever think Elohim is asking you or telling you to do something for him, and you don't think you can do it, and you think it's just too hard, and you don't think he's picked the right person? Think again. Think again. And he said, "Do not raise your hand against the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear Elohim, since you have not withheld your son, your favored one, from me. Since you have not denied me the one thing that you love the most, and now I know that you love me more than all other things." When Abraham looked up, his eye fell upon a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. Caught in the thicket by its horns. You know, when Yeshua went to his death, before he was laid on the wood, the stauros that would become the execution stake, they wrapped his head in thorns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering in place of his son. And Abraham called that site Adonai Yireh. It should actually say Yeshua, or not Yeshua, Yehovah Yireh. I don't know why in the English, in this version, they try to say Adonai, but if you look at the Hebrew, it actually says Yehovah Yireh. Whence the present saying, on the mount of Yehovah there is vision. The angel of Yehovah called to Abraham the second time from heaven and said, by myself I swear, Yehovah declares, because you have done this. You hear that? Because you have done this. Remember all those people who say he doesn't test us? Those people are denying themselves blessings. Because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your favored one, I will bestow my blessing upon you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars of heaven and the sands on the seashore, and your descendants shall seize the gates of their foes. You know, all of that has come to pass. We are as numerous as the stars. We are as numerous as the sands. We are scattered throughout the world. We are coming home, began coming home in the late 1940s. We have seized the gates of our enemies and taken back a good portion of what is biblically set aside as ours. It's all happening, it's all coming to pass, and he says, because Abraham was willing to give up the thing he loved the most on earth, be out of love for the thing he loved the most in heaven, the one he loved the most. Because he was willing to give up his son for his father. Because he did that, we have the land today. All the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your descendants, because you have obeyed my command. You know, a lot of people read that and say, well, that's never happened. They hate us. They may hate us, but they bless themselves when they do things like let us run their governments. You know, we talk about people like Daniel and Yusuf and Mordecai. Talk about them in Scripture and how they rose to positions of authority under foreign rule. And how because they were allowed to hold that authority, those nations were blessed. But we forget about people like Henry Kissinger or Disraeli or any of the plethora of Israelites who have stood in positions of government. We forget about both Presidents Roosevelt. We forget about the blessings that came to this and other nations when Israelites held positions of governance. We forget that his word has spanned the entire earth because of the influence of the house of David. That's really how it came to be printed in so many languages. Because members of the lineage of David Hamelech chose to pour their time and their energy and their resources into the translation and printing of Bibles and the shipping of them to missionaries all over the world. They can hate us, but they can't help but love what they received from us. And why does it say that they will be blessed by his descendants? It says, because you obeyed my command. Not because you believed in my grace, not because you put my Torah aside, not because you despised the covenant. Because you obeyed my command, your descendants will be a blessing to every nation on the earth, Abraham. And if he was faithful to Abraham in that moment and throughout history since then, why is it so hard sometimes to believe that he would bless us the same way? Abraham was really nothing special. He was a very flawed man. He made a lot of really bad choices. Said and did a lot of things I'm sure he regretted. But you know what he did? He loved Elohim. He loved Elohim more than anything or anyone else. He obeyed Elohim. He was faithful in that. And because of that, because of his faith, it was counted to him as righteousness. Abraham then returned to his servants, and they departed together for Beersheba, and Abraham stayed in Beersheba. I want you to think about everything we've read so far, and I want you to kind of ponder this. Can you see that everything that has happened so far in today's text is a mere reversal in order, chronological order, of everything that happened in the week leading up to Pesach in the year that Mashiach died? Sometimes it's hard to see it. You almost have to read this chapter backwards or that chapter backwards, but you will see every major event foreshadowed in the opposite order. Now I'm going to tell you something. This mountain in the land of Moriah, archaeologists, cartographers, people who study these things far more deeply than I do, have located this mountain. Yeah. They've located it. By the topography and the descriptions of how he got there, and they know exactly where it is. It's still there. And it looks out on a place called the City of David. Place overlooks a valley called Golgotha. A little place the Bur Hadesh calls Calvary. That's where all of this happened. No human being could plan that or orchestrate that. Moshe could not have known that thousands of years later, a descendant of Aaron, adopted by the Yehudim, no way could he have known that the man who would be the ram, the man who was the lamb, no way could he know that he would die on the mountain that the elders named when they were telling him the histories that went into Genesis. I want you to ask yourself how many things just in that chapter Yeshua fulfilled. And remember that simple math of Mashiach. You and I together couldn't add up to that many messianic prophecies that we fulfilled. Every man in this room together could not add up to that number of messianic prophecies that we fulfill. He fulfilled the entire chapter. Also want you to think about where he went back to. This is a man who had spent his life, his adult life, bending to the whim of his wife. I can't give you children. Have children by my maidservant. Now do away with the maidservant. Now do away with the child. Now love this child, not that child. It says, and they departed together for Beersheba, and Abraham stayed in Beersheba. Where is Beersheba? That's the place that he sent Hagar and Ishmael to. This man who was willing to give up all else for the Creator came down from that mountain with a new confidence. And you'll begin to see as we go through the rest of Abraham's life, you'll begin to see that he takes charge of his own life. And he doesn't sell out to the whims of other people the way he did before. Although this had to have been one of the most difficult episodes in his life, coming to terms with the idea of sacrificing his only child, or his only child that he still had, he came back from that not just a stronger believer, but a stronger person. The next time you feel like you're being tested, and the main lines are telling you, God doesn't test us, not if we're his people. Think about Abraham. Think about how he's allowing you to become stronger by allowing you to be tested. Sometime later, Abraham was told, Milcah too has borne children to your brother Nahor. We haven't heard about Milcah and Nahor since much, much earlier. Chapter 12, 13, something like that. Uz, the firstborn, stop right there. Y'all know I told you there's places in the book of Job that make me think that maybe he knew Abraham. I told you there's places in Genesis that make me think that Abraham might have known Job. Where was Job from? Oh, he's from the land of Uz. A land named after Abraham's nephew. And Buz, his brother, and Kemuel, the father of Aram, and Hesed, Hazo, Hildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel being the father of Rebekah. Rebekah. A name that is going to be with us for a while in this story. One of the most righteous women in all of Scripture. A woman who chose to love her husband having never met him. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother, And his concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore children, Heba, Gaham, Tehash, and Maacah. We have a midrash. Yes.
I think we talked about how it could be planning on the amount was the same for that photo. I think the other could be planning this out that the Rams thought before they got Marks. Wasn't it? Didn't Roman soldiers put the track forward? Says
Yeah.
they wouldn't have known any of it.
Yeah. They wouldn't have had a clue.
But you know, somehow they were, I guess, divinely inspired to do that. I would say in a way.
Well, you can look at it two ways. I know Rabbi have debated this, Messianic Rabbi have debated this a lot, a great deal. Was it that he let the ram be caught in the thorns and then he made the Roman soldiers put the crown of thorns on Yeshua? Or was it he looked down through history and he saw the torture that Yeshua was going to go through, and he caused the ram to be stuck in the thicket so that we would have no choice but to recognize him for who he is? And then I don't know the answer. I'm saying is anybody else? Oh, okay, got more?
Why do you think that this is named after Nero's firstborn? Because it's his name,
The only time in Scripture that a man shows up with that name, and then there just happens to be a land not far from where Abraham was. Well, it was in those days. Now, on by today's standards, it's not that far away. But there happens to be a land where a man who obviously knew the Elohim of Abraham spoke with him, conversed with him, was in good standing with him, was righteous in his sight, living in a land that just happens to bear the same name as Abraham's nephew. I think we're getting into too many quote-unquote coincidences to call it a coincidence.
It makes sense. The only thing that doesn't kind of hard to understand for me is that probably is true, but I tend to believe that my thought is that Abraham knew Job. It was late in his life because the land.
This is late in his life.
I mean, I guess it could have happened long before, but like how I thought it was like, that the guy probably founded the land, and unless Job was already living in the land, when was he born? Was he born after it was founded?
We're not told that in Scripture. We're told that he was living there when those things happened. Now, here's the thing to think about, okay? And this is something I've pondered, and it's just a speculation. I've said, there are things that point to maybe Job was one of the men in Abraham's little army that he had, right? Okay. If late in his life like this, we don't know how old he is. We know that Yitzhak was born when Abraham was 100 years old, okay, or was conceived when he was 100 years old, probably born when he was about 101. We know that at this point, he's old enough and mature enough to have an in-depth conversation with his father about what a proper sacrifice is, okay, and to willingly lay himself on the altar, foreshadowing Mashiach, okay. So how old would that be? At least an age of accountability, if not older. He may have been quite a bit older, we're not sure. Okay, so how old was Nahor when Uz was born? We don't know. We know that it was late in Abraham's life that he learned of this man Uz even existed. And I don't think it's unthinkable that he might have sent emissaries back to his birth people, maybe to share the truth of Torah, okay, to share the truth of who the Elohim of heaven is, okay, to share the name of Yehovah. We know that Job knew him by name, right? Okay, that they spoke to each other face to face. So it may be that Job was, as I speculated before, part of that entourage of Abraham, who then went back to the land of Uz and was dwelling there. Okay. It could also be that he did not know Abraham and that Abraham sent somebody back and Job learned from them. Okay. We don't know. We don't know. There's a lot of speculation there. But there was definitely a connection between Abraham and Job, or Job would not have known the things that he knew. Anybody else?
I just want to say that this is really good. And can't imagine having to do that. You know, imagine how heavy his heart was when he found it out. And also, I kind of wondered if he thought maybe, well, if I do this, maybe the blessings will come.
It's hard to know. Someday we'll get to ask him.